Good evening, Jedi Knights and Sith Lords, and welcome to the Star Wars Artifact Show. I'm Dominic. I'm with my co host Eric, and tonight we'll be reviewing or breaking down, should I say, episode 7 of the Andor series called The Announcement. So, uh, we begin, I'll let you begin talking about the start of the episode and
Okay, I'll
format.
do that. So, uh, we started with the episode. It was called The Announcement. Um, we began on Coruscant, where Cyril seems to be taking part in yet another boring breakfast with his mom. And let me get that going over here. And this time it's his suit that she's criticizing. Apparently, the collar's too high, and according to her, it means that he's desperate for approval. Perhaps it's his mother that the approval he's desperate for, but I mean, uh, we'll have to see what happens with that. Then he hears on the news of the Aldani robbery. It was pretty funny to see that that kind of like looked like he had an LCD television at his house and have watching a newscast. It's the first time I think we've seen any kind of vision like that. Usually it's like holographs or holographic things, or so it was kind of weird to see that kind of aspect. Like someone just had a TV playing in the background. So that,
Responsible for last night's atrocity on Aldani will be taken uh, by. I think they thought they took the Empire by surprise, but according to him, that is not the case. We finally get to see the officer's face, and we immediately recognize Colonel Wolfie Laren. He mentions that they need to decide how they need to close, how tight they need to close their fist. And that sentence immediately reminded me of Princess Leia's quote from episode 4, when she said to Tarkin, "The more you tighten your grip, the more star systems will slip through your fingers." So it popped in my mind immediately. And then Yularen mentions speaking to Emperor Palpatine and getting the insurance that he will have full support for the use of Imperial military and Navy forces. So it's pretty obvious that they have, carte blanche on that department. But Deidre thinks it's wrong, and that what happened, uh, to mention that it was a robbery, it should have been considered as an announcement.
so after that, we end up in Luthen's shop. He's listening to the robbery on the radio, and I remember how something we didn't really talk about, but how they mentioned about the Aldani population, or how they arrested or taken into custody. I think there was 100 or something that they had taken into custody. Then Mothma appears shortly after, under the pretext that she was returning the gift that she had bought her husband at her previous visit. Uh, this time, the driver stays out, and Mothma wants to know if he was responsible for the events in Aldani. And Luthen acknowledges. Mothma's afraid for the consequences of Luthen's actions, and he says that they needed to be taken. They need every credit that they can get their hands on, and he mentions that they just simply cannot hide forever. So he's all in at this point. There's no turning back.
At the bureau, Cyril is visiting at the Bureau of Standards. Sorry, Cyril is visiting the building where he will be working from now on, and each employee have their own cubicle, and they all do their own thing. So not much communication between the employees. Um, what seems to be his future boss mentioned Cyril's uncle, Arlo, but we still have to see him for the very first time. They both talk about what happened on Morlana 1, and Cyril is adamant about clearing his name. So they both agree about that topic, and the supervisor tells him that they have an opening in fuel purity. Don't know what that is, but we'll see perhaps in the next episode.
Okay, I'll try to let you fix your audio. But
Right.
I mean,
Meanwhile,
yeah. For me, it's funny because when it came to this scene, I've always worked in, I think, in offices for the last, call it 18 years, if not more. And it's like for me to see this kind of, um, I guess, workplace when it's like basically all, uh, cubicles. And, I've never had an issue working like that. I mean, I enjoy just, being behind the scenes and working like that. But this guy, for him to be going from aspiring to being who knows what rank to being a mere digit in this office is pretty funny to me. I feel bad for him, but I mean, I guess it's karma in a way for him to end up in this situation. But to see that little desk, the little computers, and thinking that's going to be his future from now on is quite humbling for him, and it gives you the impression that there's no way he's gonna tolerate that. He's gonna continue going and moving towards his old aspirations. He looks absolutely miserable in these episodes anyway, right? So, and I guess that's the point. So, but moving on after that, back at the ISB, Deidre has asked the attendant Falzonis for a record of all the missing avionics, comm, navigation, and targeting equipment for all star systems. We also briefly see Cinta, which is not pictured here, but it's the first time we see her, obviously, and the only time I think basically we see her briefly, still on Aldani. She's after witnessing. She witnesses the arrival of a Star Destroyer. I should have put a picture of that. It was actually quite beautiful, and it's something that we had seen in the trailer, I think, previously, which also led us to believe that it wasn't the end of
yeah,
Cinta. And then she takes off on a custom speeder bike, which and we don't see much more of her for the rest of the show. So,
yeah. Well, I've posted a picture on my Facebook page, the Star Wars Artifact page. So
okay,
those of you who are curious to see it, have yet to see the episode, can find it there. So,
all right,
all right. So on Coruscant, Luton's assistant Clea meets with Vel. They discuss the fallout of the mission on Aldani. They mention the name of those who died, simply saying that they will be remembered. That is the arguments of war. No ceremony, no uh, fanfares, no beautiful tribute. They died. They did their what they were supposed to do, and that's it. We move on. So um the then Vel tells Clea that she's disappointed that Luton did not come himself. And the more I think about it, the more I think she is Luton's daughter. I think I mentioned it during last episode,
yeah.
but I have my doubts about that theory, and maybe we'll know a little bit more in the upcoming episodes.
Well, it's
But
funny because we were talking about approval from a parent with
mhm,
Cyril, and it looks like that's what she's. It really looks like she comes off as a daughter
true.
waiting for approval or support from her father. Yeah, so I think
Yeah, I think she was looking for a little tap on the back,
yeah,
good job, something like that. So,
yeah.
and before they part ways, Clea tells Vel that she needs to eliminate Cassian. So, no loose ends for that missions.
So I guess we'll see what in the end of the last episode where he ended up, I guess, not turning his back on her and running away with the money as suggested. So
Mhm.
I think she won't forget that if they do come face to face, and you know, maybe she'll start questioning her dad the same way that Mothma did, right? So I guess we'll
Yeah,
see what happens
perhaps
with that.
it might be an extremist, a little bit like Saw Gerrera.
Yeah,
Maybe that's why they're gonna meet before the end of the season. So
and it's funny. This is I thought that she looks a lot. I find Clea looks a lot like. Coincidentally, we were just talking about the name Clea and Leia. I thought
Hmm.
she's got some of the features of Carrie Fisher and the kind of long face, and all you get to do is like curl up her hair on the sides there, and I think she does look a lot personally, a lot of features from Carrie Fisher and the Millie Bobby Brown that we keep talking about these days, and how we want her to
Hmm.
be the next Leia or a young Leia. So it's something that kept standing out when I was watching the scene. I had to replay it because I was so busy looking at her and thinking, geez, it doesn't really capture it maybe in just this shot, but as she's moving around, and I thought it was pretty obvious, but everyone has their opinion, I guess, when it comes to that.
Could Leia
Um,
be right under our nose without us realizing it's her? I don't know. But normally she's supposed to be like 13 or 14, so
yeah, yeah, because it'd
it
be
wouldn't
five
fit in
years
the timeline.
before,
Yeah.
yeah, before Yavin. So let me go back to Ferrex for the first time since episode 3. Caston's first stop is naturally at his mom's place, her adopted mother. She and B are happy to see he's doing well. Andor tells her that he came back for her and he wants the three of them to get out of Dodge. While she's supposed to be packing her stuff, Caston checks on Bix. Um, he leaves her there. They agree that they're going to be moving, but he goes out and checks on Bix. We get the confirmation that they were an item, so obviously justifying the jealousy from her now dead boyfriend.
Yeah. Tim.
Um,
Poor Tim.
Before he leaves, he gives her the credits that to pay off the money that he's borrowed from her. I think he even gave her extra for, I think, to pay off other people, if I remember well, or like other
Yeah, they were
debts that.
waiting for his friend
Yeah,
Brasso, and
that's it.
he named a few others, but yeah, he's paying all his debts, and he's leaving with a clean slate.
Yeah.
And we go back to Coruscant because there's a huge party at Montmartre's place, or should I say penthouse or mansion, whatever.
Sorry to
We
interrupt
see.
you. Is this the party that was supposed to happen? Because she mentioned it was
No,
delayed,
it's
right?
another one.
Okay. Because
I never, no, I didn't notice if she ever mentioned it was delayed,
well,
but
she mentioned that there was a meeting that was delayed or something like that when she was talking to Luthen.
okay, I
I
thought
could
she
be
said
wrong,
they
but I
might
could.
delay it because of the
Oh,
robbery, because
okay.
that's how I understood it. But
I could be wrong.
she was she was really nervous about that party because of the events that happened on Aldari. But we see a lot of people, big shots, wealthy people, imperials, senators. But then Matma has an interesting conversation with an old friend from Chandrila. He is a banker named Tay Kolma. One wants to recruit him in the rebellion. That's the person she was talking to Luton about in the previous episodes. Um, and she reveals him a secret that only 3 persons in the galaxy know. So my theory is that those 3 persons are obviously Luton, probably his assistant Clea, and the third one would be Bail Organa, as I would imagine. So
He was
those
in
would
the
be the
trailer, right?
three.
I mean,
No, is not. It's never been showed so
no?
far.
Huh,
No.
okay.
So that's my guess, and I wouldn't be surprised if he had a little cameo because they brought him back for the Obi-Wan series.
Yeah,
So why not to shoot a scene or two while he's on set? With all the costumes
yeah,
and everything, so it would fit. Um, and she wants to use her political status. Well, the secret is that she uses her political status as a facade, but she's secretly funding the rebellion, and she needs him to, retrieve her assets without raising any suspicions. Because as she's mentioning, she's watched from every angle. She doesn't even trust her husband. She says her car driver is someone who was planned by
yeah.
the ISB. So eyes everywhere. And, she's doing a good job, and she's taking a huge risk telling all that to our old friend because we have yet to find out if he's gonna betray her at some point or not.
But he even tells
I
her at one
wouldn't think
point, right?
so.
He goes, just
Yeah,
basically watch what you tell me because he doesn't want to be put in a position where he knows too much and would have to turn on her, I guess, or would have to turn
yeah,
her in, right? So,
but as soon as he tells her that he's not a big fan of the Empire,
Yeah,
I think it opens the
reassures her.
gate.
Yeah,
No, it reassures her. So,
yeah.
uh, so that's that's good. Really interesting storyline in the upcoming episodes.
Um, so moving back on his way back home, Keston sees stormtroopers. After obviously leaving Bix, he sees some stormtroopers, which triggers memories of the moment his adoptive father Clem was wrongfully arrested by clone troopers and hanged. He then arrives at his mother's place. Well, first of all, we have to stop and talk about these clone troopers, which look absolutely awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Was really happy to see them, and again in action. How many were actually actors? I mean, who cares? But like it was fun to see them marching and moving around.
Yeah,
So my son hasn't seen the episode yet. He hasn't really been following the show as much. It's that I mean, obviously this is not a kids show.
yeah,
And we can get into this after, like, whether people like this show or not, but this is obviously not a kid oriented show with lack of action, lack of pop, no Jedis and stuff like that, and
yeah,
stormtroopers. But um, it was definitely fun to see that little flashback there.
yeah.
um,
And judging by the way the clones are dressed, uh, my guess is this event is happening right after Order 66, when the clones all go back to white uniforms.
yeah, so they're not part of the any of well, they have no more
That's true.
captains, yeah, so
No more yellow like the blue for the 501st and
yeah,
the yellow for Obi-Wan's Legion. So, no, they took it out to dehumanize the clone troopers.
yeah.
So,
So then he arrives back at his mom's place and he learns that she's decided to stay. Um, she's standing her ground, and Caston doesn't understand. And his mother tells him that she needs to stay and fight. She will stand up to the Empire. She also tells him to stop looking for his sister, uh, just as he's leaving. But there was a couple little flashbacks. I didn't include it in the shots here, but I mean there was this. You notice like the kid kind of like charging towards the clone troopers, like, and all this kind of stuff, and there was all the. I don't know, it was very weird, and something I only looked at a second time briefly when I was doing these screenshots, but it's something I want to go back and look at maybe a third time, and try to grasp more what's going on. Like she says something about marching down and, like, standing up to them, and you
mhm.
see that image in the back. So I don't know what you thought of that. So
Well, when I saw him charge the clone troopers, I immediately wondered if it was the reason he was sent to juvie. Because when he was speaking with Skeen about his tattoos and everything,
yeah,
he mentioned having been sent to juvie when he was 13, something like that. So it's probably for that reason, assaulting troopers or stuff like that. And we see somebody who has been hung, and it's obviously Clem,
yeah.
Cassin's adoptive father. So
So it was his flashbacks as she was talking, I guess, is what you're
yeah, and
saying.
she,
Yeah,
she was saying that she, she saw her husband when he was hanged,
yeah,
and she just couldn't stand walking through that little square or plaza
yeah. Hmm.
because she would always see him there. So for 13 years, she went through a little detour to avoid walking over there. So yeah, it's pretty sad, but now she's ready to move on
It's good. Now
and
I have better context when I watch it the next time. So
stand for her beliefs. Yeah. So back at the ISB, our friend that we were seeing here, Blevin, accuses Deidre of interfering in his affairs during a reunion. She explained that she's used the Imperial Emergency Act following the events on Aldani to retrieve the information she needed. After explaining herself a little bit more, Pentagaz salutes her initiative and mentions that everyone in the room should learn from such a devotion.
that was a good line. I forget exactly what it was, where it says,
Yeah,
if everyone acted this way or whatever, and then it kind of basically said, well, maybe people should, right? Like it was
mhm.
It was pretty cool. I don't know. I find obviously the script and the dialogue in the series is just as interesting as the action or for so I mean the ratio of dialogue and like development is obviously much bigger than the action, but I think it's clever and you could see Gilroy did a really good job with it. So
Yeah, and then well, Pendergast reassigns the Morlani system to Deidre, and Bliven is obviously disappointed with the turn of events. You can see it in his face. And after the reunion, well, Pendergast tells Deidre to watch her back because I'm sure that Bliven will go quietly and he will want to,
yeah,
to a little revenge,
it's basically walk
perhaps.
with me. Then after that, he just throws out watch your back. That's it, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah,
it's like oof.
she's in
Okay,
hot
so
water
yeah.
for sure.
Um, so after that, I actually cut off the board here. So we find ourselves on Niamos. I don't know what the what the proper way to pronounce that is, and the planet. I mean, we've never heard
It
of
has yet to
before.
be officialized. It's either Niamos or Niamos. I don't know, but
It's got like a kind of like beachy, I don't know, California, Jersey Shore kind of look. It's got that weird music. I don't know if you noted. The first thing I
yeah,
noticed is this weird,
electro pop
weird
music. Yeah,
music. Yeah, I had a
I
complete
liked it
different
though. It
vibe.
was
Yeah,
cool.
it's making it really diverse, I guess, in that situation in terms of the diversity of music that we have and all that. I mean, I don't know how many times I mentioned music so far in these
Mhm.
shows that we do, but I mean, it definitely keeps it interesting. Um, so we see Wendy. It's a beautiful woman with whom Cassian now is hooking up with, and he's calling himself Keith now. Um, and she asks him to pick up some Pizos and some Revnog at a store nearby. Andor was mistakenly apprehended. This is pretty funny. Of the
Yeah,
stuff he gets
unironic,
away
right?
with, right? Everything he gets away with, he gets caught being at the wrong place at the wrong time because he was like stuck in like I guess like, it looks like I don't know the side of the beach like some kind of bleachers, people running away, and they think he's all part of it. So we see him; he's apprehended by a patrolling shore trooper, which is always fun to see. I mean, obviously being part of the Pathfinders and the 501st, I can't wait to
Mm.
see everyone start criticizing the shore troopers and what's different and if there's going to be a new version just as there was a Mandalorian scout trooper which is all this kind of criticism and talk about what's different. I mean, I'm sure they're going to find something on these shore troopers, but
Well,
maybe not.
since
They're still pretty recent, right? So
yeah, since they're Imperial, there shouldn't be any big variants. I think in the costume or the
yeah, well, considering also is it's their first appearance was in Rogue One,
Rogue One.
right? So I mean, there's no reason they should have been making too many tweaks. They've probably made more costumes, but I mean, I wouldn't
Mhm.
think that there's too many more tweaks that they would have done. But I mean, I'm sure I didn't even go look at the forums yet, but I'm sure they're blowing up. Um, so and then we have a KX series droid, security droid, which after being falsely charged with civil disruption, uh, it's funny. I was almost waiting to hear K2SO's voice, but obviously that's not the voice that we heard.
Yeah.
So it's just and there was obviously multiple. I think we saw two of them. I think buzzing around two of the droids. So it's weird to see this shot where after seeing Rogue One to see that now he's being apprehended by one of the droids. Um, so after that we see him in court or his hearing or whatever's for his sentencing, um, in which he receives 6 years of prison, which is quite harsh.
Which
Uh,
should have been 6 months, but
yeah, but is that a
with the
result of what they were saying, cracking down on this resistance, right? Like, I would assume
yeah,
so, or yeah,
it's the result of his mission on Aldani. They increased the sentences length,
yeah,
and he pays right away.
yeah.
How ironic! I
Of
mean,
all the luck, I'm telling you, it was just so funny that like he gets away with all this stuff and being at the wrong place at the wrong time gets him a 6 year sentence, right? So that was pretty much it for the episode. Close off after that. I think we saw was it Cyril that we saw at the very like the last scene, but I mean there wasn't
Yeah,
anything.
yeah. The last shot, was him finally working in this little station,
Yeah,
and we see the how gigantic those offices are, and
yeah.
he's like just a pawn in a sea of
He's
pawns.
yeah, he's like an army ant, right? Like he's just basically one of many, and irrelevant, I guess, in the grand scheme of things. So
And just to show us how much he is low in the ladder, you know, I absolutely love the scene where he had to step aside to let a mouse droid pass. I mean, the mouse
yeah,
droid won't even go around it.
I picked
He
up
has
on that
to step
too.
away from
Yeah,
the spot, and the mouse droid.
he's become so insignificant. Poor guy.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know. I
He's
don't
even
even know why I
maybe
feel bad for him, but like I just do. I guess I don't know. I guess someone who's got so much aspiration and drive to be ending up
ambition.
like that, yeah, is tough. And you could, I don't know. I don't know what's gonna happen to him. They keep showing him, right? So you're forming a bond, and if we go back to what I was talking about earlier, when um, you see on forums the people that talk about filler episodes and whatnot,
Hmm.
and then this guy's development, like we've seen him, in the first three episodes, his fall from grace, and they keep showing him, and you keep
Yeah.
growing an attachment. You're feeling empathy for this guy, and so like you wouldn't get that in a 6 episode series,
Oh,
and
for
I'm just really curious to know where they're headed and why they keep lingering him. They could have just flushed him away, right? And that's it. We're never going to see him
sure.
again, but he's always there, so obviously it's going to come full circle and we'll see him again, right? So
Yeah, well, he's supposed to meet with Deidre at some point. There was an interview, I think it was Entertainment Weekly, that showed us an interview on YouTube, and they both said that they would end up, their paths is going to cross at some point. So it's going to be interesting seeing him and Deidre uh, working together, two very ambitious folks. Uh, I don't know, maybe they're going to have a little love interest between those two characters.
I
I
don't know.
mean,
She seems pretty tough, so uh,
yeah.
I don't know. I don't think she's got. I feel like they both don't have time for that kind of business. Or they're all business
Hmm.
basically. But
Yeah,
to go
perhaps.
back to what we had discussed, and you told me actually before this started that this is not the start of a new arc, right? Like this was a,
Right.
a standalone episode, kind of. So
Yeah, so Tony Gilroy mentioned in an interview that episode 7 was like some sort of a transition between the second arc that we just saw with the heist and the third arc, which will be episode 8, 9, and 10. And that's probably going to be a prison break because we obviously imagine that Cassian won't stay in jail for 6 years. That would put him past the time he's supposed to be dead on the, stealing the plans of the Death Star, so he's gonna escape pretty quick. But that episode was like a, you know, making the point of where are we for the moment, So the heist, it happened. It has its consequences. We witnessed that with the Titan ripped from the Imperials, and we see that even if he tries to live a life of party and relaxation and where someplace warm, when as you mentioned to his mother, he still manages to get caught by the Empire, and his past is always coming back to him. So
I think it's interesting that you know this. I didn't know it. But if anything, this is gonna fuel the people who already have a bit of a who are pessimistic about um, this series and are already not happy with the
mhm.
series. Like this episode is totally going to be a trigger for them. And for me, I thought I liked the episode. I remember I asked you what you thought of it before I got to watch, and you absolutely loved it. I mean, you obviously pick up on the Easter eggs that we're going to get to
Mhm.
in a few minutes. I mean, a lot more than I do. And your recollection of stuff like Clone Wars and Rebels is obviously a lot more fresher than mine is. So I mean, obviously you got something a lot better, a lot more out of it than your casual fan, or the people who are just waiting for the, I guess, Jedi's and Darth Vader's to come and start striking along. So it's unfortunate that they don't have that context, and I think that from the start they didn't manage their expectations on what to expect from this. And anyone who's seen Rogue One, or you have that argument, what's one of the best Star Wars movie? A lot of people think that Rogue One is among the top three
Hmm.
movies, and I don't know about top three. I mean, I'm not going to make that that assumption or that decision here, but I mean it's definitely among the top five in my opinion. I mean, no
Yeah.
doubt, or top five for me.
Hmm.
But and that's something that came later to me when I appreciated the fact that maybe I'm the one that stepped back as well after watching it a couple times and realizing that it's not about the Jedi's and the lightsabers and all this kind of stuff. So I really ended up appreciating, and because of that, uh, appreciating Rogue One, I guess you start to realize where this series fits in, and it's along that kind of, I don't know, that wavelength of what happened with Rogue One. So
Yeah. And watching that series and even the Obi-Wan Kenobi series last spring makes me, I feel like I have to watch Rebels again because, there were some Inquisitors. We saw that in the Kenobi series, and we are seeing now the rise of the rebellion, and we see a lot about that in the Rebel series. So probably after finishing that series, season one of Andor, I'm gonna rewatch the entire Rebel series once again, just to make those episodes more fresh in my memory, and I might get a new perspective on some events that happened in that series as well. So
there's Guillaume that says that for once there's a story to tell, and that is
yeah.
absolutely true. And for once they have, they're not given 6 or 8 episodes, so just cram as much as they can in there. And
Hmm.
and for me again, the word that keeps coming back is develop the story. We have another season coming.
Yeah.
Um, you know, let the climatic ending or whatever the I mean, I don't think that there's any war that I know of that happened, I guess, in that time frame. But like, I'm all in for watching more heists, and whether it be the
Hmm.
jailbreaks or whatnot, like these kind of little action scenes. I'm intrigued to see what's gonna happen with Cyril and Deidre. Like, for me, I'm really excited, and it just sucks because we just, some people didn't get to have it their 12 episodes all at once and just blow through it and say, oh yeah, okay, in hindsight, yeah, it all makes sense. But I mean, the example I've used plenty of times. I mean, everyone thinks, not everyone. I mean, most people think that Breaking Bad is a great series, but almost everyone I've known who started watching it didn't really attach to it, or right off the bat. It took time. They're
Yeah.
like, I didn't know what it was, and it was a little slow in this. I'm like, yeah, but overall, you think overall the series was great. But
Hmm.
how many times, and whether we talk about Game of Thrones or anything like that, where you watch an episode like, man, nothing happened this week. Okay, well then next week. But as a whole, with the exception to the last season of Game of Thrones, in my opinion, but as a whole, I thought it was great. But you have to have everything at once, and maybe people should just be waiting. And my
Yeah.
recommendation is, I told one of my friends, I said, if you're at episode 5 and you haven't watched an episode yet, just wait. At this point, just
Hmm.
wait. Get it all at once and be happy. So
They, now they know how the series works, so I don't know. Watch and the 3 episodes per 3 weeks, and you'll be satisfied because you'll get the beginning and the end of the arc right away, and it's going to be more satisfying for those viewers, I guess. And Guillaume has an interesting thought as well when he says like some people prefer some more fan service, like we got in the Book of Boba Fett, and it's totally true. I mean, I think I'm talking about it on every show, but it's like it always comes back to your comparison to a menu. I mean, some like fast food, some like more sophisticated food, and that's it.
yeah,
Doesn't mean you don't have to like more one than the other. You can like both as well, like I do. So I enjoy both. It was cool seeing Cad Bane in the Book of Boba Fett, but I am enjoying that series as much as I did with season one of The Mandalorian, for example. So
Yeah, and you know, it once all this content is out there, and the same thing, I've rewatched the original trilogy. I don't know how many times. I've rewatched the prequels quite numerous times. The sequels, not as many, and especially Episode 8. I can probably
mhm,
count on one hand how many times I've watched that movie. But
yeah,
it's there, and you go back to it. You want to rewatch what you want. I mean, obviously, when you embark on Clone Wars, it's quite the task. They have so many
yeah, so
tutorials,
many
I guess, and
episodes.
help like to watch, you know, the key episodes. But
Yeah,
yeah. So anyway, like you said, you take what you like, you order what you like, and you skip what you don't. So um, you want to move to the Easter eggs?
yeah, sure, why not? Well, the first one, the one that made me, get all jittery or very happy, the infamous nergasm was uh, seeing, because I always watch the episodes with the subtitles on, because I don't want to miss any details or any key quotes. So as soon as I saw Yularen, Colin, and then the first quote, I was like, "Oh my god, they did it! They did it! They brought Yularen to the series." And I was wondering if it would be brought, because that guy is the most interesting unknown character, I think, in the Star Wars universe. When I say unknown, I mean mostly for casual fans, and I don't mean that as pejorative. But he's that guy that we saw at the meeting when Grand Moff Tarkin was explaining that the Senate had been, eliminated from the Empire, and the regional governors had the total control. So that was this guy. But when the Clone Wars came out, we really started to learn more about Yularen. In that show, he was an admiral, and he fought alongside Jedi Knights such as uh, Anakin Skywalker, Spider-Man Ahsoka Tano, and obviously Obi-Wan Kenobi. So, as you can see on those pictures, he was in the final arc of the Clone Wars, and he had a great impact in that series, and he was depicted as someone likable. And now, maybe not anymore, because he has to implement the laws of the empire, of the emperor. So he he might have changed through the years. The series takes place about 13 years after the events of episode 3. So people change during such long periods of time, and maybe he's in simple survival mode. But what I like the most about that guy is that he is competent. That guy is not the dumb, typical dumb imperial officer. He's no Admiral Ozzel, who is as uh, stupid as clumsy, I think is
Yeah.
how
Well, I mean, I guess
they really put
ignorant
it.
and just following orders, right? Like there's I guess it's and you see a lot of that. I find just like you know.
Yeah, and we even saw him in the Rebel series, because he was one of the responsible person that brought up Grand Admiral Tron. So they're very tightly related. So their careers were pretty close to each other. And if you read the new Tron trilogy from Timothy Zahn, which I haven't read, but I've heard about it. It's supposed to be amazing. Uh, they speak a lot of Colonel Yularen and Grand Admiral Tron's interactions between those two. So
I've pretty much done the first book, but I mean, in terms of recollection of name, that I have to go back and see. Um, but I feel like it's been so long. I guess binge read, I guess if there's such a thing, and try to go back and
Mhm.
read. So I have all 6 books, and I just haven't even gone through them yet. So
And that picture is a capture from an episode in Rebels in which they're trying to find out who is the Imperial agent who is betraying them or revealing stuff, which is obviously Agent Callus that we see in the Rebel series. But they're investigating about those events from that picture. So it's a pretty cool arc if you want to go watch it. It's pretty interesting to find out how it all ends up. So I strongly recommend you watching that part.
so after that we
After
have
that, well, there's two Easter eggs. Okay, we're skipping that one. Okay,
yeah, we'll come. It's after
we'll come
this
back
one.
okay, perfect. So when Clay Guy is walking, she's going to meet Vel on Coruscant. We hear a voice on the speaker saying LUH341, and it stops over there. But I found out that it was a reference to LUH3417, which is Robert Duvall's love interest in George Lucas' first movie, THX 1138. So I thought it was a pretty neat Easter egg, and I had to mention it for obvious reasons, So, and right after that, okay, you don't have the two holograms.
I do not know. Sorry.
Okay, well, she continues her way in the hallway, and we see two holograms, and there's some Orabesh mentioned on those advertisements. One of them says "Tasty Pizzos," so that's exactly what Windy wanted Cassian to go buy when he got arrested. And the second one that one is a lot more interesting. It says carry your chain code from ISB, from the ISB. So that's a message that people now need to carry their it's like their own social
Identification.
security
Yeah.
number. So they need to carry that, and we saw how they implemented those chain codes in the Bad Batch series. There's an episodes where they want to leave a planet and they need to acquire fake chain codes to avoid the Imperials to arrest them. So that's another interesting episode to watch. Maybe before
I still
the
have to
second
catch up
season
on
comes
that.
out. So that's for this part. They also mentioned the Ord Mantell, which is a planet uh, located in the Midrim, and that planet was mentioned in for the first time. It was in episode 5, The Empire Strikes Back, when Han Solo says to Leia, "Well, that bounty hunter on Mantell changed my mind." There's a little brief conversation between those two. So that was the very first time that system was mentioned. But we got to know more during the Clone Wars because it was the planet on which Maul was operating his Shadow Collective. So we even saw him decapitate some Fallen, like those who were on the Black Sun, like Prince Shizor. And we also see some more about that planet in the Bad Batch. This is where Clone Force 99 take refuge, and where they are taking missions from Sid, the Trandoshan informant lady, who were giving them some missions for money, obviously.
Yeah.
So that was a pretty cool Easter egg I found out.
It's a
All
bad
right.
picture here, but
Yeah, well, it never came out really clearly on screen, but we saw a Temple Guard mask for the very first time in live action. We had only seen it in the Clone Wars, and I think we saw it on the Rebel series as well. So it was the very first time that we saw those helmets in live action. As you can see, I already have one next to me, so I'm making a tron of out of myself, collecting all sorts of art pieces from around the galaxy.
What are
But
you, the collector? What's his name from the Marvel series there? The
well, I think it's the collector. That's it.
yeah,
No.
yeah, is it?
Yeah. So yeah, I'm grabbing some little pieces. I also own, as you can see on that picture, the lightsabers, and I also have a connector to put them together. Those little yellow things at the bottom of the picture are kyber crystals. So you put them in another cron, and you get messages from the temple guard leader. So it's pretty neat. And then we see some imperial credits, like the ones they stole from the imperial base on Albani. So I thought it was pretty neat because out of a coincidence, tomorrow I'm reviewing all the credits they are selling at Galaxy's Edge, and among them, well, you guessed it probably, there is the Imperial credits. So if you want to learn more about those credits, and I'm also reviewing the Camtono that we saw in The Mandalorian. So if you want to learn more about all of that, make sure to tune in tomorrow, starting at 1 p.m. Friday, and you'll get all those fine and interesting details about the five different various type of credit they're selling on Galaxy's Edge.
Kind of looks like it says Doom at the bottom of them.
Yeah, I know. It's not Doom. It's Row,
Yeah.
ROWE. But I have yet to find out what this abbreviation means. So if anyone out there know what the heck this means, please let me know in the comments below, either of this video or the review coming out tomorrow. But I would really love to find out what it means because I've looked all over the web and couldn't find the meaning of that
Disappointed. Disappointing.
abbreviation. Yeah.
I would have thought that you would know this of all people.
I
So.
know, I know. I'll call Pulpy this weekend, and I don't know. Maybe I'll be able to go at his summer vacation, summer resort, and see if he can tell me why he wrote.
Yeah, watch out when you go to resorts. You can watch where you walk. You could get
Yeah, I could be
apprehended.
arrested
So,
for no reasons. Why?
so here's a little something. I think it's the next slide that Dom is not aware that I put into the slideshow,
Mm-hmm.
and it's basically I don't know if you've seen this, but someone in one of the groups I was in sent the picture of this, and what we're looking at specifically is the cup that they're holding in their hands.
Okay.
And apparently, if you want to drink like they drink, you can go on Amazon and order the cups here, and apparently it's the same thing. So there's a bunch of different pictures you could see it at the bottom there, but like that's the one picture I took. But apparently it's the same cups that they're using there with that silver border. So I don't know. I'm kind of tempted now to get one and see and drink my coffee like I usually drink during these shows, and maybe I could drink it like one of these good-looking men over here or there. So
Yeah, well, that's a great find. And now that it's on the web, it's going to sell out in a matter of days or perhaps weeks. But yeah, it's a pretty cool find.
So the last thing I have is a picture, and it was funny because the last was it last week or the week before when I was talking about my retro collection figurines that
Yeah, it
um,
was 2 weeks ago.
yeah, and I mean I had them all. I mean I just I get every single one that I could find, and I enjoy the nostalgic and retro look to it, obviously, but I was saying how they've been going and made a Mandalorian version of it, a Book of Boba Fett version of it, Obi-Wan and stuff. But I'm like, I wish that they would just stick to the series that we grew up with, getting that nostalgic feeling to it. And lo and behold, this week they announced finally the
Wow.
Return of the Jedi version. For me, like I mean, I just look at that Lando and it freaks me out having that figurine.
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious to know. I didn't look if Bush's if her helmet's gonna come off, but I think we were just reminiscing before about which figures we had and which we didn't have. And of that series, personally, I had them all with exception to Han with his jacket and Bush. Bush I never found. I remember the box of the Jabba's lair with those, the two kind of grates there that you would open and close, and she was in
Yeah.
there and stuff like that. Like it was, and I never found it. I had Lando, I had the Scout Trooper, um, and I had Luke as well. Emperor I had as well. Emperor I don't remember looking like that. I mean, they're pretty close to what they used to look like, but I don't remember the Emperor looking like that. I mean, mind you, I was probably five,
Yeah,
six
yeah,
years old.
it's pretty resembling. I
Yeah,
had it, and yeah, it's pretty resembling. Even the solo, I had the solo with the jacket there. I had Leia with her Andor tunic as well.
yeah.
I remember having Lando that we're seeing right now. I did not have Bausch and the Scout Trooper, or even Luke Skywalker. That was the one I was
I had the Scout.
wanting the most.
I had the speeder as well that you would push the button in the back and it would just kind of blow up.
Explode.
Yeah,
Okay, yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
So
I bought the later version from the Power of the Force. I had one from the Power of the Force series from Hasbro when they
reissued them.
reissued
Yeah,
those, yeah, in late 90s. But I didn't have the one from 1983. I also had a skiff guard. I remember having uh, the Rancor Keeper, which later was named Salamaki. Who else I had from that movie? Prune Face.
yeah.
Yeah,
I
the
had
the
that one
alien
too.
with the little cape and the patch eye. So that one, and who else?
The only thing that kind of worries me that now it's
I
either
had Jabba.
they're gonna have to expand on what they've already released because they've released A New Hope, Empire Strikes Back, and now they're gonna release the Return of the Jedi. Which I mean, I use the same sources you do when it comes to this stuff. I'll be using the Kaya
Hmm.
and I think I've got every series so far from them. Even though I see them in store sometimes, there's usually one missing, or I don't like the
Yeah, you
packaging
just
with
buy
them.
the whole wave, and
Yeah, they're damaged. I mean, I found them a couple times, but I just leave them there. I have confidence in Steve that I'll get my set. So, but
well,
I just find that like now that they've taken out. I mean, there was no other movies after that, right? That growing up in that
true.
nostalgic era, and so are they going to go and expand and put more of the
Or the prequels, maybe.
well, no, I mean, it wasn't really the same. So, oh yeah, I mean, do they go? It
Well, they
wasn't.
did the Mandalorian and Book of Boba Fett, so they could do the prequels.
Yeah, I guess they could do that. I mean, is there going to be an Andor version? But I mean, for me, I would like for them to continue growing on more of these supporting roles and the kind of
Yeah,
like
for sure.
characters. But I'm not sure that they're gonna. Because the thing is, once you've taken out those main characters, now basically you've just got those miscellaneous characters in the back that are not as popular. And again,
Yeah.
talking about the casual fan who's not liking Andor or whatnot. Like, I mean, are they really going to sell? I mean, I think it's more for collectors anyway. This
Hmm.
series. I mean, with all the figurines, all the stuff that they've taken out, Black Series and the the Vintage Series and whatnot. There's plenty of stuff for kids to play with. But this, I think if I was a kid today and I saw that figurine, I'd be like, "What the heck is this? Like, this thing is like, it looks pretty
Yeah.
bad, compared to the other stuff that we're seeing." So, I mean, for us, I guess the collectors, and I mean, I'm not a giant collector, but I mean, for the nostalgic feel, I think that's what
Hmm.
that's what it's there for. And I was
Yeah.
fortunate. I think the only series that I bought myself was I think it was the second series, The Empire Strikes Back, if I remember. That's the one that came out in Walmart.
Okay. Yeah.
That's the only one I think that I actually went to the store and found. So, but at
But
first they
you're
were,
right to use, Steve services from Kaya Boutique because the guy is a collector, probably the biggest collector in the province of Quebec. So, what better than a collector to take care of, other collectors' stuff? So, uh, he's sending me the new elements from the Black Series. I'm actually expecting the Altered Trooper element in a couple of days. So there's gonna be another review upcoming, obviously. Spoiler alert. But everything that is sent from that boutique is, in pretty good condition,
Yeah,
obviously,
I've
because
never had anything bad from there. He supplied me with my Scout Trooper,
the
my
boxes are always
Mandalorian.
mint.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. He always takes care of his stuff. He understands what it's like to be a collector, and coincidentally, I mean, without plugging any movies or anything like that, there's that movie coming out um, recently. It's going to have a showing on the 20th and 22nd. I mean, I'm trying to make my way to watch it. Obviously, the tonight's showing, I'm not there, but like there's another one on Saturday. I'm going to try and it's eventually going to be available for streaming. And Steve is obviously showcased in that movie,
Hmm.
and shows his collection, and maybe when it's a bit more available for people to watch, we can talk about it and either talk to
Yeah.
Steve or talk to Mark
And
about the movie. So
I was fortunate enough to visit Steve's collector's house last year, and I saw his entire collection. And I'm still having dreams about that evening because it was so impressive. There's Rancho Obi-Wan for our American viewers,
yeah,
but Steve is our Quebec version of Rancho Obi-Wan. I mean, he has all the action figures from and the variants from the original figure action figures from Kenner. If there's like four different boxes for the Millennium Falcon, he has all four.
yeah, it's
So
crazy, and that's all
yeah,
featured in that movie. And hopefully, again, when we have more information and it's more readily available to for people to watch. I mean, you're gonna see all of this stuff. So
I think it took me 2.5 hours to go, through all of his stuff.
you could take about an hour going through that room where you're in, right? So I can't even imagine what's going on in his place. So it's
Yeah, yeah, and at some point, I don't know how it came. We came to discuss about that, but I mentioned, also growing up loving GI Joes, and he stopped talking and he said, "You like GI Joe as well?"
yeah,
And then he opened another door, and there was another room dedicated to GI Joes from the beginning of the '80s to the mid '90s, and that room was maybe a bit bigger than my office that you're saying right now. And there was a USS Flag, and the Sky Strikers, and all the stuff.
yeah.
And I was like, "Oh my God, where am I? I want to live here."
But there's another one that's in Montreal. It's not as big, I think, of a collector, obviously, as Steve, but the armor maker here in my area in Kirkland,
Okay.
Mark Harrison. He's the one that does the authentic props for anyone who wants to be a stormtrooper. And if you go to his place, there's a lot of people who've been in his basement. He'll invite you down, and maybe I should reach out to him one day for you. And that guy's basement is something else.
Well, maybe
Uh,
we could have him as a guest on the show.
yeah, we can maybe check, and maybe if you can
Yeah.
give us like a virtual walkthrough or something like that. But he's got an
Yeah.
impressive setup too. So either we can go visit, and I'll try and get in touch with him. But yeah, it's definitely interesting to watch. But
It'd be cool.
yeah. So I don't know if you have anything else to add. I mean, I'm personally what's next, and I'm looking forward to seeing episode 8 and the
Mhm.
start of the new story arc. See
Yeah.
what's
So the
next.
new story arc will be 8, 9, and 10, and episodes 11 and 12 will be the finale of the series. So it's going to be pretty hectic, I think, until the end of the series. I assume we'll see Andor dressed in white, which will remind us even more of the THX 1138 movie, because the suits is pretty similar to those ones. So it's going to be interesting. Who is going to meet in prison? Is he going to meet somebody that will have a huge impact for his future? So yeah, I'm pretty optimistic, and I'm thrilled that we're beginning a new arc next week. So,
Yeah.
and for those who are Clone Wars lover, we have the Jedi Tales that's coming out next Wednesday. So 6 episodes, 2 arcs. One that will be more focused on Ahsoka Tano, how she was I don't want to say recruited, but how she ended up in the Jedi Academy and the temple. And the other one will maybe show us a little bit more how Dooku, you know, the reason why he left the Jedi Order. So
And we have
he
Qui
will be
Gon, right?
seen,
That's going to make an appearance, and
yeah, because
yeah,
Qui Gon was Dooku's apprentice.
yeah,
So we're gonna see a younger Qui Gon than we saw in the Phantom Menace. So yeah, I'm pretty pumped to see those 2 arcs, and we'll obviously talk about it perhaps when the Andor series ends. We'll have an episode or two about those arcs. So
yeah, for
good
sure.
stuff on its way for Star Wars fans for sure.
And how many subs are we away now?
We are at 73 subs away from the 1000 mark. So if you are watching this video and you haven't subscribed yet, please, it takes a few seconds, hit that subscribe button, smash the like button, and hit the notification bell to be notified whenever there's new content coming out on the Star Wars Artifact channel. So, as I mentioned a little bit earlier, tomorrow will be a review on the Camtono and the credits. I'm sure you'll liked it, and well, I guess that's it for tonight, my friends. And thanks to everyone who stuck with us until the end. And well, we'll see you next week for episode 8, I guess.
All right, all right.
Have a good night, guys.
See ya.
Bye.